If you grew up a wrestling fan during the Monday Night Wars, then we guarantee you loved the classic AKI wrestling games. Released pretty much exclusively on the N64. To this day, these games are beloved and considered the measuring stick by which all wrestling games are compared to. Recently, with the extremely buggy and botched release of WWE 2K20, many fans have been clamoring for a return to the AKI style of gameplay, which was easy to pick up but hard to master. We don't know what the future may hold, but for now, let's take a trip down memory lane as we take a look at the history of the AKI wrestling games. The first release was actually for the Sony PlayStation, when on August 13, 1996, Virtual Pro Wrestling was released in Japan, and on February 28, 1997, when WCW vs. the World was released in the US. This game tends to fly under the radar when compared to the others. For one, it was the only AKI release, then known as the Man Breeze, on the Sony PlayStation, but don't sell this one short. It introduced many essential elements of the engine, such as the replacing traditional health bars with the Spirit Meter. The Spirit Meter aims to create a more authentic pro wrestling experience by rewarding players for trying different moves and taunting. Although this was a WCW title, this game has a very heavy Japanese influence. Modes included staples of Japanese wrestling, such as the Best of 7 series and league matches. You could also create custom championships, and you can even put them up against your friend's custom title in the double title match, in a clever use of the PlayStation's memory cards. It featured 13 WCW wrestlers and a very large selection of custom wrestlers based off of Japanese superstars. If you're into the original Sony PlayStation and looking for a fun wrestling game you might have missed, check this one out. On November 11th, 1997, AKI, now under the name Asmic Ace, released their first game on the console that made their games famous, the Nintendo 64, with WCW vs. NWO World Tour. The game was also released for Japanese audiences as Virtual Pro Wrestling 64 on December 19th, 1997. The grappling system from WCW vs. the World was expanded upon much more, resembling the classic engine fans of the developers love, and the roster of WCW and NWO wrestlers was expanded upon. The game featured plenty of unlockable characters, and also included the selection of custom wrestlers based off of Japanese wrestlers. The character of Joe Bruiser in particular was a stand-in for Muhammad Ali. It no longer featured custom championships, but it included a championship mode in which you could fight for every WCW title. This title won the 1997 Fighting Game of the Year by the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences and was a huge hit with the fans as well, selling well over 1.3 million copies. Just 1 year later, on November 26, 1998, AKI released WCW and NWO Revenge worldwide. This was the first and only game AKI made exclusively for WCW, and you'd find very little people who will dispute that this was by far the best WCW video game ever released. The grapple system was expanded even more, and the graphics were significantly upgraded. This game was also the first to feature real WCW arenas, and also allowed players to edit the gear of all the wrestlers in the game. The gameplay and attention to detail was greatly expanded upon. For instance, in World Tour, Kevin Nash's jackknife looked like a standard powerbomb, whereas in Revenge it was modeled to exactly how Nash did it. AKI also included more taunts and gave wrestlers the ability to steal taunts as well as their opponent's finisher. The championship mode remained, as well as the unlockable characters. The large selection of custom characters based off of Japanese wrestlers remained as well, including the debut of AKI's own mascot, the AKI Man. The roster of WCW wrestlers was bigger than any previous release by a pretty good amount. The only notable name missing was Ric Flair, as he was involved in a lawsuit with the company at the time. This game also won the 1998 Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences Fighting Game of the Year, and went on to sell over 1.88 million copies, making it the best-selling wrestling game on the N64. By 1999, the tide in the Monday Night Wars was turning, as each and every week, more and more fans were choosing the WWE over WCW. WWE was also noticing the strong sales of AKI's WCW games, which were a main reason why THQ saw record profits in 1997 and 1998 and wanted to get in on the action. A deal was quickly negotiated, and on October 31st, 1999, WWF WrestleMania 2000 was released. Once again, AKI improved upon all aspects of Revenge. Custom championships were brought back, and for the first time ever in an AKI game, the Create a Wrestler feature was introduced, along with the ability to customize any regular roster character, just like in Revenge. Many of the previous moves and taunts of WCW wrestlers were also featured in the Create a Wrestler, so fans could easily create their favorites, such as Macho Man Randy Savage and Hollywood Hogan. WrestleMania 2000 also included wrestlers' actual entrance teams and snippets of their Titantron, which for the N64 was pretty mind-blowing, although these weren't the greatest quality. Create a Pay-Per-View was introduced, as well as the Road to WrestleMania feature, which was the first attempt at the story mode. Players can unlock secret characters like Cactus Jack and Shawn Michaels in this mode. Like Revenge, this game was a massive hit with the critics and fans alike, as it received rave reviews and sold over 1 million copies by January of 2000. Although WrestleMania 2000 was released worldwide, AKI used the exact same engine to create the Japanese-centered Virtual Pro Wrestling 2, which was released on January 28, 2000. Since the custom characters who were modeled off Japanese wrestlers were removed from WrestleMania 2000, this was a must-have for any fans of Japanese wrestling. Keeping the yearly tradition alive, on November 17th of 2000, AKI released what many would call the pinnacle of wrestling video games with WWF No Mercy. The roster featured over 60 wrestlers, along with an even more robust Create a Wrestler mode, and the ability to add any wrestler in the game as well. Additions to gameplay modes included the SmackDown Mall, which feature a marketplace to hidden wrestlers, as well as extra items and moves to add to your created wrestler. One thing that was removed was the Road to WrestleMania mode, which was replaced by the previous Championship mode, although this mode was more than just a series of random matches like it was in the past. This mode included branching storylines for each title, which gave the game a large amount of replay factor, and also gave the fan a realistic WWE experience. It also added a survival mode, which included a 99-man Royal Rumble, which players could use to earn extra cash for the SmackDown Mall. To this day, many fans, including myself, consider this as the absolute best wrestling game ever made. Some fans have taken this a step further and created many mods for other promotions and updated rosters, keeping this game alive and well for the foreseeable future. Corey Ledesma, who was the creative director of WWE games in 2013, had this to say about No Mercy. To this day, I still hear, "Why can't you make the new WWE games like No Mercy?" And I don't think I'm ever going to stop hearing that. It's 13 years old and we still get compared to No Mercy. How we compare to No Mercy's gameplay and how they want us to bring a sequel back to No Mercy and put it on Xbox Live. A sequel, WTB Backlash, was scheduled for 2001, however it was cancelled due to the impending release of the Nintendo GameCube. Unfortunately, this was the last of licensed AKI wrestling games, as WWE worked out an exclusive deal with Yuke's, the developer of the WWE SmackDown games for the PlayStation. Many fans did like the SmackDown games, but this was still a disappointment, as they were always considered second tier to the AKI releases. The AKI engine was bought by EA, and there were talks of a new WCW game with the engine, but in 2001 WCW went out of business, and that also never materialized. The closest thing fans got to a sequel was the release of Def Jam Vendetta and Def Jam Fight for New York in 2003 and 2004. Rappers were used in place of pro wrestlers, and moves were exaggerated a bit to fit the style of the game, but the engine was there. Will we ever see another game like No Mercy or with a similar engine to what AKI produced again? It might not appear likely, but as we all know, never say never in this business. What were some of your favorite memories of the AKI wrestling games? Leave a comment below, and also don't forget to like and subscribe for more content.